Director of Water Resources. Staff solicited bids for the 2020 well rehab program to perform maintenance on specific production wells. This is a cross-section, just a sample cross-section of a well, just for reference purposes. We perform routine maintenance on wells by acidizing and disinfecting them in an effort to improve their performance. When our maintenance efforts can no longer improve the performance of a well, it requires a professional rehabilitation contractor to come in. Professional rehabilitation is periodically required during the life of a well as groundwater contains bacteria and minerals which cause the well to plug towards the bottom of the well. The screen, which is at the bottom, gravel packs and formations may become blocked, reducing the capacity and the efficiency of a well. This buildup reduces the amount of water that can be pumped to the surface, and when we have those wells rehabilitated, it extends that life. It reduces the electricity that it costs us to actually pump the water and the cost to produce the finished water itself. It allows the water to get through the screen easier once this process is done. And one of the examples I had used in a previous presentation was, think of a straw and the bottom of the straw gets closed off and you're trying to pull water up. It becomes somewhat impossible. The contractor will be required to basically do a pre-test. When they get all their work done, they do a post-test and they tell us how much more efficient that well is operating. They lower a camera, they use high pressure jetting, chemical treatments, mechanical methods to improve the performance of that well and clean that screen on the bottom. So this is a list of well rehabilitation history, just for you to see, and I know it might be a little bit tough to see this information. This is the Smoky wells on the left side, the city wells on the right side, the dates that those wells were put into service, and the last time we actually did any professional well rehabilitation with those. Prior to 2019, some of the wells were rehabilitated back in 2001 and 2002. For the records and for tonight's purposes, we went back to 2020 because that's a pretty long length. So you can see some in 2001, 2002, and we did the ones last year, which Commission approved in 2019. We did start this process again in 2019, and my goal has always been to get a baseline of all of our wells so we can easily monitor them. We know we have a start point and then how our program will look going forward. In speaking with contractors that do this work, wells should be rehabilitated probably every 5 to 10 years, but that depends on some various factors such as the pumping, how often that we're pumping that well, how long it's been in service, the quality of the water that's being pumped out of the ground, some of the ground formation. So 5 to 10 years is a good average. So for the 2020 project, we have one city well on our list that we're going to complete. This well is just south of Highway 40 and just east of US Highway 183. It's C28. You'll notice that is just south of Briney Motorsports, so that'll give you a little bit of reference of where that is. There are 3 Smoky wells in this area. This is S14, so S for Smoky, S14, S21, and S22. Those are located to the east of Shinshin, and the highway that's running through there is Highway 183, and it's along the Smoky River. Then north and west of Shinshin, so west of Shinshin is S20. You can see this little city of Shinshin right there, and then to the north and east of Shinshin is S11, and that's the one, if you're coming down the hill in Shinshin, you'll see it off to the right. That's the one that you can see closest to the highway. So this visual is a couple different visuals of the screens at the bottom. The left side is before, the right side is after. Same thing over here, left side is before, right side's after. So you can see that the debris and all the things that have been cleaned out of that well. And the bottom is just a picture of some of the things that they pull out of there, such as the minerals, the formations, and the things that have blocked up the screen itself. So we opened bids on May the 5th, and 5 contractors submitted bids. Downey Drilling is out of, their main office is Lexington, Nebraska, and they submitted the lowest bid at $65,021. Downey Drilling's bid is below our budget of $80,000. They have offices in Lexington and Kearney, Nebraska, and then as well as Garden City, Kansas. And one thing that is kind of interesting about this is last year Lane Christensen did our project, and their project manager had been with Lane Christensen for years, and in the last year he moved over and he's working for Downey Drilling. So found it kind of interesting that he moved over there, but we've worked with that project manager before, and we were successful this last round with that project. So for financial consideration, it's in the CIP within the 2020 budget in the amount of $80,000. We would fund it out of the projects line item in the water distribution and production budget. Total cost obviously is just a little bit over $65,000 for the project. If you pass this on, you would have 3 options for next week. That would be our recommendation, obviously, to award it to that company, and then this would be the action that I'll request next week, and I would stand for any questions.
Jeff, I have a question. 2 things. On the efficiencies, so how much more efficient does it become normally?
So what on a well, basically, you look at when that well was first drilled, that well should be 100% efficient. So by doing some pump testing and some capacity testing of a well, they can say it measures now 60%. So the goal is always to improve that efficiency. Contractors will tell you, multiple contractors will tell you that if a well starts to lose 20% efficiency and we can't get that back by doing the methods in-house that we do, then it's a good idea to get that contractor involved. So for instance, last year we had the wells that we completed on average, we probably increased the efficiency up about 40% of each of those wells. So now they're roughly 90% efficient, 95% efficient. So I think it was really, I know it was really successful because we could only do 10% efficiency when we would do our methods. And you understand that they're taking the well, the pump out of the ground when they do that. So I hope that answered that one question.
My other question on your on the bids, 4 out of the 5 were quite a bit under budget. We did this last year. Do you know why there's such a difference?
Clark last year came in pretty high. Clark, we did not have Grosh irrigation last year. The other ones did come in at the same. Clark well, they proposed some other methods that were within the bid documents, but it's an addition to what it's an additional type of charge that I don't think that we find that necessary because we are getting the results that we need out of those. So those are very favorable. Sometimes it's the company is a larger company and they might have some, and plus right now this time of the year, you never know on bids the way things are going in the economy. So
oh, it's good to see. I was just curious.
Very happy with the results. And honestly, Downey last year came in about $68,000.
Right.
And they lost the bid. They were second last year to Lane, so it just kind of flip-flopped.
Good.
So we do a, oh, go ahead. You're fine.
Jeff, you have the visuals of where the wells are located. I'm just, I guess, curious for my information of, is there something that protects the wells from like the elements, the weather, and those kind of things?
Yeah, it's a couple structures. So they all have structures, with the exception of one of them. The one down by Bryony Motorsports is more underground, but these structures are, the older structures are brick structure. The new structures are actually cast concrete. So it's like walking into a small building. And they have an overhead, so when they go to pull things out, we open a hatch and then they get those things out.
If I'm driving by, I could see it. Is there like a visual that you could get for us?
Well, of course I can.
Okay.
Not a problem. Something's going on here. Thank you, Commissioner.
I just want you to know I had nothing to do with it, Jeff. I wasn't even here to
Commissioner,
hear.
it's been a long day. That's all I'll say.
Jeff, I know you came on, 2015? And you wouldn't know why these wells haven't been rehabilitated. I mean, we had the ones in 2007, but some of those are pretty old and have never been rehabilitated. I think it's great that you are making sure we're getting this done to increase our efficiencies and keep our well field, in good shape. So I just wanted to say thank you for
Thank you.
doing that.
I have a question, Jeff. On the acidizing that's done by the city crew, are you doing that on all the wells every year? Or are you waiting for a performance change to go acidize?
We typically will do a performance check on that well, and if we've noticed since the last time it was checked that it's continuing to go down, we'll do maintenance. There are some wells that are constantly running that we will do more maintenance on. I do have, it's not on a visual, but I do have a list of each well all the way back to 2005 and each year that it was actually performed. That's on my spreadsheet that I hold, with Tim, the superintendent. So we do go out and they do make a point to check wells every year. And some of them that are not used as much, those could be the wait time could be a lot longer. But
And that was my
we do
question, if
have
you're
the
checking
records.
all wells every year.
Yeah, but I will say that we have emergency wells in our system.
Mm-hmm.
We have some Dakota wells. We don't use Dakotas. Those are south and west of Hayes. We don't use those as much because they're so deep and the quality is not the greatest. We have 6 of those wells. We have some emergency wells within our system. We have a total of 37 wells. We have some emergency wells that are just there in the event that we need to basically feed the system. That wouldn't be necessarily chlorinated, but those we won't go through and rehab. So a follow-up would be that in the next 2 to 3 years, we can get through all of our wells, and then we have that baseline that we can move forward with.
And at what stage does it happen that even bringing outside in to work on it, that flat just is not going to get back performing? Does that ever happen?
We've seen, in the few that we've done, we've seen success in the rehabilitation from those contractors. They're also, as part of this project, they don't just take care of what's down the hole. They're actually looking at the pump, they're looking at the motor,
Okay.
and if there is recommendations that need to be made to say, hey, you've got a problem here, we budget every year a certain amount of dollars for repairs and maintenance of those wells. And so at that time, we may go through and
That
actually have
answers my
something
question.
repaired.
I appreciate it.
Jeff, a couple questions. So when they're finished, do they give you kind of an idea of when to contact them again when they need rehabilitation?
Well, obviously, we currently go out to bid for them. So we get a report. We get a full report. We get pictures. We get video. We get everything that they see, what they've done, specific capacities. It's very similar to the report that we do in-house when we acidize and disinfect a well. But yeah, they give us a report and an idea, because if you have a well that, we could only get it up to 75%, and over a history, we see that we're having some problems, that could be a well that needs to be on our radar that maybe in the future we have to do something different with. And back in 2007, the history that Commissioner Melick was talking about, they did some relocation of wells and drilled new wells. So some of these wells that are here were from 2007. We just haven't done any professional rehab on them, and that's why they're on the radar now, because we use them quite a bit.
And then once you get, I guess, your schedule caught up, are you going to keep doing about 6 every time?
Just as necessary. So with the 2021 budget, I need to make an adjustment. Obviously, it hasn't came to you guys just yet, but we had put that on a schedule to do 6 every year for the next 6 years. Well, that's not necessarily the case. It's not necessary to do them every single year. Like my next project, sewer line cleaning, we want to do that every year, and there's a reason for that. But on these wells, we could get them done the next couple years, and then we may come back in 5 years and start that process over. And we'll put that further out on CIP to make those plans.
Okay. Thank you.
Moving on.
Move it on.
Any other structure questions? I'm sure there'll be more for this next one.
Yeah.
All right. Good evening again. Jeff Chrisman, Director of Water Resources. Staff solicited proposals for the 2020 sanitary sewer cleaning and CCTV inspection program. This is a photo of a sewer jet truck and a camera van. It's actually a photo of here in Hayes. This is from last year. This is, I believe it's actually pretty close to Hayes Middle School. You'll see that the jet truck is right here, and he is putting the nozzle into the ground, and then there is a camera van on the back, and I'll reference that here in just a second. But problems that can be caused by lack of sewer line cleaning include sewer backups, manhole overflows, public exposure to raw sewage, and then regulatory fines, which we definitely do not want. A nozzle is inserted, as I just talked about, in one of the manholes, and high-pressure jetting is used to remove debris out of that sewer line. That is a picture of a typical cleaning nozzle. There's multiple types. The nozzle is pushed with a jet of water from one manhole to another manhole, as you saw in the first picture. Debris is collected at the manhole, at one of the manholes, and disposed of out at our wastewater treatment facility. The camera inspection can and typically does occur at the same time that this jetting, so you'll see a camera going along while that nozzle is moving through the system. Light cleaning is what we have to do with every single sewer line. You have to do light cleaning. That's one pass through the sewer line. So that's our basis of this project. 2 to 4 passes is for medium cleaning, and then 5 and more passes could be for heavy cleaning. So there are times when those other things have to occur, such as an area where grease may be prevalent in our sewer line system that might be being dumped down the drain. So there are areas of town that could happen. That is kind of another picture of a camera truck, and it shows the camera system crawling through the sewer line there. Video inspection has been required as part of our cleaning contract. It is included in the bid amount that we'll be talking about tonight. This helps provide early detection of flaws that will allow for repairs to be made before a catastrophic failure happens. It allows for the contractor and the city staff to make decisions on additional cleaning methods and repairs that are necessary. Previous CCTV inspections have been produced records for us in-house, so we can see where there are abandonments. And an abandonment is specifically that camera was going through and it couldn't go any further, and so they call that an abandonment. You also have situations that come up, such as cracks, holes, tree roots get into our lines. So those are all issues that we see with CCTV information. So we use this information to make decisions on repairs in our sewer system. And I'll go quickly, but I wanted to kind of just bring up what we've done over the past couple of years. And I say we, Office of Project Management, IT, all work very hard on this. Last year, like we do in all of our years, is ProPipe, the company that we had last year, they removed 34 tap intrusions, and I'll show you a little bit about that here in just a second. Also, that we had 294 linear feet of roots that were removed out of that last area. M&D had a project that the commission had awarded in the last couple of years to go down and take care of point repairs where we had abandonments. So that's digging all the way down, sectioning in new line, and then replacing everything above it. We had another company called SAK. They did about 15,000 linear feet of lining, and that was big projects, manhole to manhole. All those repairs were due to processing of all of our information from these inspections. In the end of the month, I'll be coming back to talk to you about the next round of point repairs. So we've been pretty aggressive over the last couple of years. This is a kind of a overhead visual of, zoomed out visual of where we're going to be this year. The red is basically the areas that we are going to take care of. You will see, and I'll get this out of here, I labeled sewer force main. One of the things we did on this visual, and you saw in your packet probably, the yellow is for force main and yellow is for private. So there are some private sewers that the city does not own, but the force main is basically around those lift stations that run along the bypass, and we're not taking care of those within this project. This is zoomed in a little bit further. You see Hall Street, Vine Street, Milner, and then it goes down towards the campus. That is this round of project. And this is the area that we took care of 5 years ago. So we have a 5-year cycle, and we want to continue that cycle to make sure that our system is healthy. Some of the things, I'll just show you some examples of what we see. This one we don't see very often. This was a fiber line that was bored through one of our lines. And we got with that contractor, that company, and they moved their fiber line. They also fixed our sewer line for us. So that is something that you don't like to see. CCTV sees roots, so I said 294 linear feet. We had, there's a cutting tool on the right side. It's kind of hard to see, but that goes through and basically cuts the roots out. That's what it looked like on the left side before. This one, the left picture is not the best picture, but you can see soil in the break. And basically what happened is we went through and we had that one. That was a lining project that lined that. We can do lining on big sections. We can also do patchwork where it's a 2-foot, 3-foot, 4-foot patch. So the bids sometimes can be confusing, and I want to explain it a little bit. So we had sent out to 9 firms for this project. We had 3 proposals that we opened up. Pipe Detectives, which is the apparent low bid, the ProPipe from last year, and then Mayor Specialty Services. And Commissioner Jacobs, you've asked this one before, so I wanted to spend just a second on it just to explain it. What you're looking at on the left side is the size of pipe, the linear feet. We know it's almost 111,000 linear feet. And then this is the price per size of pipe. Now, 85 cents at 92,000 linear feet gets us to $78,000, and you drop that all the way down with all the sizes of pipe in this work area, and we're at $94,614 at minimum, because you have to light clean everything. So for the last couple of years, we've come to commission and asked for budget authority to spend up to a certain amount so we can cover some other things within there. So the bids came in at $94,614, $122,738, and $110,547. There also is a price for roots per linear foot, and then the protruding taps that they would take care of when they go through and take care of this project. So Pipe Detectives is a new company for us. They are not a company that's been around for 30 years. They've been around since 2013. Mostly they do work up in the northern states, North Dakota, South Dakota, in those areas. If awarded, the crew, equipment, and superintendent would be mobilized from there, and then they would work until this project is complete. I did do some extensive references because of them being a company that's not necessarily around this area. Talked to 4 references, their general manager, their project manager. They wanted to bid further south because up north it's colder in the winter, towards the winter times, and they have a smaller season of being able to do things, and they want to establish themselves a little bit further south. So they have all the equipment necessary, and they do a lot of different projects. They had a lot of small projects listed on there, but they don't have a lot of larger cities that they work with, but all very good references. So we have $150,000 budgeted in the current budget for 2020 in the repairs and maintenance line item, but what we are asking for is the approval of up to $130,000 this year. Reason for that is based on history. We are comfortable that we can go up to $130,000 and not necessarily the $150,000 that we originally budgeted. And if you choose to pass this on, this will be the options that we'll present to spend the $94,614 with a budget authority not to exceed $130,000 to take care of all those other things that we want to handle. And that'll be my recommendation and action that I would request, and I would stand for questions.
Jeff, the difference in what you're asking to go up to versus what the bid was, is that about the same differential as you've had in other years, that $35,000 extra?
In the past 4 years, we had 1 year that was $142,000.
Okay.
We did add on some things that we took care of that were not necessarily on that original scope because we had an area that we wanted to do some extra work in. Typically $120,000, but usually the bids come in around $100,000, and then we have about $20,000 to $30,000 of other work. And it is definitely money well spent.
Jeff, just to be clear, so what we're doing in 2020, we did 5 years ago.
Yes.
This isn't new. So
We go on a 5-year cycle.
I was just curious because it's the older section of town, wondering if you expect any major ones, but we've already done it, so it shouldn't be.
If we would stop
Yeah.
and then say, hey, let's start it back up in 5 years,
Right.
we would have problems. You have ground settling, you have things that happen, you have wet years, dry years. It affects the system. And one of the big things that I didn't, and I'll talk about the next time when we come back with the other project, is I&I, which is inflow and infiltration, groundwater and stormwater that seeps into it. Every time you get that happens and you don't take care of those problems, that ends up down at the wastewater treatment plant. We have to treat more water.
Right. I like what we're doing.
Who determines, so this bid's all for the light cleaning, and as you're going through the project, it may take medium or heavier cleaning. Who determines, you or do they determine?
We will have a pre-construction meeting. Their project manager would be here, or their project superintendent. Tobin is our supervisor over maintenance, and he will work with that company directly. I may be involved in some of those decisions, but a lot of times it's a phone call. Hey, we're seeing 2 or 3 taps that we need to grind down in this area. Come take a look at them. He'll go look in the camera van, and they'll say, yeah, let's take care of that tap intrusion, or let's take care of those roots now. Or they'll call us and say, we found something that you need to come see, and it's not a good situation. Doesn't happen very often, but they work daily.
Jeff, this was done 5 years ago. Was this all cambered at 5 years ago?
Yes.
And did we take care of all of our point repairs that were seen at that time?
26 of them in this area were taken care of, yes.
Okay, so,
Oh, and it might be a little bit less, but we should be seeing in the next 3 or 4 years the benefits of what we've been doing. It'll make our system much healthier.
well, I guess what I'm saying is that we have repaired everything that was seen in 2015.
I'm not certain that we've repaired everything. We've taken care of anything. Our first round of point repairs was, let's find the worst of the worst. And then we may have areas in here where there's cracks that we do need to take care of, but it does take time because you may have 600 feet between two manholes and you may have 15 instances of cracks. That's kind of the worst type thing, and that's why we lined a lot of those. But it's not going to be perfect. And we can look at 2020 and say, okay, in 15 it was this way. It's not really that bad, but we've tried to take the worst of the worst and get rid of those problems first. But in that area, we've tackled quite a bit, yes.
Thank you.
And what you didn't complete was because we didn't allow enough money to spend to fix it all the first time, or?
I can't speak for 15. All I can say, and that's not just because I wasn't here, but
No.
all I can say is 18, 19, and this year, we have really tried to take care of all these extra things. That's why I've asked for extra budget authority from you all.
Fair enough. Anything else? Okay, moving on.
We're done.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Next item on the agenda, Airport Fuel Road Overlay, change order. Mr. Brandt.
Good evening, Commissioners. John Brown, Project Manager. And tonight I'll talk to you about change order for rehabbing the fuel road at the airport. The Federal CARES Act funding for airports provided an opportunity to fund certain airport projects. One project eligible for funding is the rehabilitation of the airport fuel road, which runs along the east property line of the Hayes Regional Airport. Reimbursable improvements on this road would include storm sewer grading and an asphalt overlay. The 2020 street maintenance program included the chip seal of this particular road at a cost of nearly $13,000 to be funded out of special highway. The street maintenance program also included a project to install an asphalt overlay on General Custer Road down by the Chitola Creek water reclamation facility. That project on General Custer includes very similar work and unit bid prices as what would be required to rehabilitate the airport fuel road. And APAC is actually the contractor on both the chip seal we had originally planned for this road and the overlay of General Custer at the wastewater treatment plant. And so the work accomplished to rehab the fuel road could be added to the contract that we already have with APAC for rehabbing General Custer, okay, through a change order. So APAC has been working with Office of Project Management and airport staff to develop a change order which includes the following items of work. A storm sewer pipe crossing to keep the water from setting along the east side of the fuel road. A concrete section from the keypad entry to the sliding gate where rutting and potholing has been a historic problem in that area. And the patching of select areas of the road bed where it's in need of some patching before any overlay on top of that. A 2-inch asphalt overlay of the entire 1,750 lineal feet of that road. And finally, the backfill grading and seeding around the road edges. The $94,000 cost to rehabilitate the fuel road under the proposed change order is reimbursable 100% by the FAA under the CARES Act grant. And the $12,820 reduction in the chip seal project cost would be made available for other special highway funded uses. So your options are to authorize the city manager to execute the change order with APAC or direct us to another option. And if you choose to move this on, the action requested is on the screen. I stand for questions.
Moving on. Moving on. Thanks, John.
That's a good way to do it in a bad way.
He had some nice visuals.
His lead, okay?
Oh my goodness.
Not to worry, Jamie, I've got you.
You got this, Jamie. Next item on the agenda. Airport apron and pavement marking project award of bid.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jamie Salter, Director of Hayes Regional Airport. Bids were received for the rehabilitation of the apron and runway marking project at the Hayes Regional Airport. The bid was presented as 2 base bids plus 2 alternates. Since its construction in the early 1990s, only minimal maintenance has been performed to the apron. The apron has areas of concrete failure where repair is necessary. Rehabilitation will include drainage improvements that will collect stormwater that currently drains east and divert it south away from buildings and taxi lanes. Base bid 1 includes isolated concrete panel removal and replacement, as well as installation of a trench drain, joint sealing, and painting as necessary, and is eligible for 100% funding through the FAA. Base bid 2 includes replacement of various pavement markings on taxiway M that are currently non-standard due to a recent regulatory change. Alternate 1 includes pavement markings on taxiway connector M1. Alternate 2 includes the main runway 1634 markings. All of these markings have been repainted for several years and have become deteriorated. Removal and replacement is necessary to reduce FOD, or foreign object debris, that can be hazardous to airport operations and to ensure the safety of the airfield at night or in periods of reduced visibility. The majority of the damage to the pavement markings occurs during winter operations. Staff has modified snow and ice removal equipment and procedures to increase the life expectancy of the airfield pavement markings. All of these are eligible for 100% funding through the FAA as well. The Commission previously authorized staff to enter an agreement with Burns and McDonnell for design and engineering services. Bids from 3 contractors were opened on May 12, 2020. The low bid was from Votes Parga Construction of Newton, Kansas, with the total price of just over $1 million. The low bid is above the engineer's estimate of $935,000 and was primarily due to the cost of concrete arch pipe, averaged at roughly $110,000 for each bidder. The FAA has determined that the low bid is valid and reasonable. Votes Parga Construction has completed past projects for the city to include the reconstruction of 43rd and 45th Street adjacent to Walmart last year. The total cost of the project is just over $1.4 million. Traditionally, AIP projects are funded at 90% through the FAA with a local city match of 10% required. As part of the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, or CARES Act, this project will be funded at 100% with no city share required. Contractor is allowed 65 calendar days to complete the apron rehabilitation and 34 calendar days to complete the pavement marking removal and replacement. Construction will have no impact on commercial air service and is phased to minimize the effect on other airport operations. Staff has notified airport tenants to ensure they are aware of this project and can plan appropriately if necessary. The Commission has the following options. Accept the low bid for base bids 1 and 2 plus alternates 1 and 2 contingent upon FAA grant approval, and authorize the city manager to execute the FAA grant agreement when offered. Provide staff with alternate direction or reject all bids. Should the Commission choose to move this forward, this would be the action requested next week, and I will stand for any questions.
You did say it wasn't going to affect any of the airport operations. I take it that includes also fuel cells?
Yes, it won't have any impact on fuel sales.
Great, great.
Yeah, my kind of a question, it kind of goes to John too. It's all kind of contingent on federal government money. Is there any reason to worry that we accept bids or get into a project and we don't get the awarded money?
No, we are much further along in the process than that. So I've had extensive conversations with them. Part of this is AIP funding that's already been part of our 5-year plan, and the other part kicks in with the CARES Act funding. So we've already actually applied for that grant for the CARES Act side, which can be used for maintenance expenses.
And it is kind of an FAA process. It's a procedural thing that's a little different with them. So we'll get a project approved for our AIP, meaning they're saying we'll give you 90% for it. But part of the process is we have to start this and do everything and get your approval and award the bid, and then submit the formal grant application and get the award back.
Yes, and we'll get a go letter that
Right.
is what the FAA calls it, that basically says that we will allocate this money for you long before even the design takes place.
Good.
Good.
Moving on. Next item, with Airport Apron Pavement Marking Project Construction Engineering Agreement.
The previous agenda item addressed bids received for the apron rehabilitation and pavement marking project at the Hayes Regional Airport. As part of this project, inspection and observation of the construction needs to be accomplished according to FAA guidelines to satisfy the terms of the grant funding and to assure proper adherence to the plans and quality construction. City's airport engineering consultant, Burns & McDonnell, developed a scope of services and fees as outlined to accomplish the required construction oversight and project documentation. Total cost for these services is just over $200,000 and is eligible for 100% funding through the FAA. As a reminder, the total cost of this project is just over $1.4 million. Commission has the following options. Approve work authorization number 4 from Burns & McDonnell for base bid 1, base bid 2, and alternates 1 and 2 for engineering services. Provide staff with alternate direction, or you can reject the project. Should the commission choose to move this forward, this would be the action requested next week, and I will stand for any questions.
Jamie, what is the life expectancy of those markings?
The markings, it really, because we've modified equipment, there isn't really a true number. We shouldn't have to, and speaking with the FAA, especially the safety inspectors that come out annually, we paint a lot more than we should. These markings have about, right now, they are at about 7 to 10 years, depending on where they're at. But they've been painted every year since, and you really shouldn't have to do that. So that's why we've modified that equipment. Especially the beaded stuff that gets pretty thick. If you catch a plow on that or something, it'll peel the whole thing off. So we've modified equipment that was made a big difference on this last winter. I know it wasn't quite like the winter before, but has made a big difference on that. And hopefully that will, we don't intend to paint each year after this.
Thank you.
Moving on. Okay. Next 2 items, runway, lighting rehabilitation, award of bid, and construction engineering.
Bids were received for the rehabilitation of the runway 422 lighting at the Hayes Regional Airport. The crosswind runway 422 was completed in 2003. It included a direct bury wiring for the runway edge lighting. Direct burial systems have a useful service life of about 10 to 12 years. This year marks 17 years since installation. Although there have not been any major problems with the current system, each year deferred increases the likelihood of significant issues. This rehabilitation project would include placing the wiring in a can and conduit system, which has an average useful service life of about 20 years, although many last much longer. Project includes the runway lighting, navigational aids, signage, and Vulcan regulators, all for runway 422. All lighting will be upgraded to LED, which will reduce maintenance and energy costs. Commission previously authorized staff to enter an agreement with Burns & McDonnell for design and engineering services. Bids from 4 contractors were open on May 12, 2020. The low bid was from L&S Electric of Salina, Kansas, with a total price of just over $690,000, which is below the engineer's estimate of $809,000. L&S Electric has completed past projects at the Hayes Regional Airport under the FAA Airport Improvement Program to include the installation of the lighting for Taxiway M and the main runway lighting. Total cost of this project is just over $1 million. The FAA Airport Improvement Program projects are traditionally funded at 90% through the FAA, with a local city match of 10% required. As a combination of Airport Improvement Program and CARES Act funding, this project will be funded at 100% through the FAA with no city share required. The contractor is allowed 65 calendar days to complete this project. Construction will have no impact on commercial air service and is phased to minimize the effect on other airport operations. Construction is planned to begin in the spring of 2021 in order to avoid conflicts with the previously discussed apron and pavement marking rehabilitation project. The commission has the following options: accept the low bid contingent upon FAA grant approval and authorize the city manager to execute the FAA grant agreement when offered, and provide staff with alternate direction, or reject all bids. Should the commission choose to move this forward, this would be the action requested next week. I will stand for any questions.
In putting this all in conduit in 20 years, and then we'll be able to, unless they've come up with something better, be able to just pull a new wire. And,
Yes.
Okay. So we should have done that 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, right
Instead
now,
of
if we have
burying
any issues, you're trenching out to find it.
Sounds good.
CARES Act has certainly been good to the airport.
Yes, we are very, very lucky.
Moving on. Yep. Next item.
Previous agenda item addressed bids received for the rehabilitation of the runway lighting at the Hayes Regional Airport. As part of this project, inspection and observation of the construction needs to be accomplished according to FAA guidelines to satisfy the terms of the grant funding to assure proper adherence to the plans and quality construction. Burns & McDonnell, the city's airport engineering consultant, has presented a scope of services and fee to accomplish the required construction oversight and project documentation. The cost for these services is just over $170,000 and is eligible for 100% funding through the FAA. Commission has the following options: approve work authorization number 5 from Burns & McDonnell, the amount of $171,175, contingent upon FAA awarding a grant, provide staff with alternate direction, or reject the project. Should the commission choose to move this forward, this would be the action requested next week. I will stand for any questions.
Moving on. Moving on.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank
Good
you.
stuff.
All right, other items for discussion. Commissioner Millick.
I have nothing this evening.
Mr. Burgess? Mr. Reuter?
I have nothing this evening.
Mr. Jacobs?
I just want it made clear again to Mr. Crispin, I had nothing to do with nothing. I don't even know what they're talking about.
I also would just like to, last week we had a demonstration on Sunday on Vine Street. You joined me with the chief of police out there. Wasn't by design. We just ended up showing up there. And just kudos to our chief. I mean, with everything going on in this world right now, he went and talked to every single person out there. And, he was more concerned about them being safe. They were really close on Vine, asked him to move over closer on the grass. And, he stood there until they all got across the street. We had no issues in Hayes. And you talk to people in Hayes, there are issues, behind the scenes, different people's opinions and the way things are, but it feels great to be in a community, having somebody like him in charge of our police force. And, he says, when I was talking to him, he preaches to his employees about not doing what we're seeing, nationally. And the good thing is we're not nationally, we're Hayes, Kansas. And I'm very proud to be part of this community. And just being around him the way he represented us, we should all be very proud of him. For adjournment.